Hey guys, it's Jin here, and today I want to make a video about love. And I know that my first video on YouTube was basically about love, and I just want to talk about love again, I guess. I want to talk about what love is to me as a 24-year-old. Obviously there's still so much life for me to experience love, and the idea of love and the meaning of love will be forever changing as I grow older. To be very honest, I don't have the answers of what love is in an objective sense, but I want to speak what love is to me. And I feel like one of the best way to really go into this topic is to kind of almost just dive into my history of love. I feel like the best way to explain it is the three love theory. So this theory is quite popular, I guess. I don't know, is it popular? But it has been around for a bit, where it talks about how there's three different type of love theories, and it proposed the experience in different stages and impact to a person's life. So the first love is characterized as a very intense, passionate, and very lustful relationship. And usually this type of relationship is found when we're younger, like a high school love. Obviously love comes in different timeline for many people, but usually the second love comes from when you are in your early 20s. And lastly, the third love, and obviously I'm very well aware that there are many people out there that would be in more than three relationships in their whole entire life, but I guess this whole theory is just three. The last type of love involves something that most people consider as true love. And what that means is it involves commitment, it's unconditional acceptance, and at last, a lasting bond with someone. So I genuinely feel like this theory of the three love really describes at least the experience I'm going through. And I would never know, there might be more experiences to live in this lifetime. I'm only 24. But at this stage, it describes everything that I've went through and how I feel about love. And so first love, it was definitely a very passionate and very lustful, like I said, high school, hormonal. Thinking about it, obviously, passion and lust, I don't think that defines love. But as a 16, 17-year-old at the time, I was just a girl who just wanted to be loved. And I wasn't able to really get that from a family. I came from quite a bit of a dysfunctional family. I started to seek out of elsewhere, which is in boys at the time. And it was gotten to the point where I would accept and be okay with bare minimum, and a guy who would put me down, didn't have the same values as me, and just do things that I just do not agree with. But I was young at the time and very naive at the time, that I was ready to put all what's actually important to me and my values away, because I just wanted to be loved. And I just wanted it to work, so I sacrificed and I threw everything down. And ultimately, obviously, the relationship didn't work out, and I got out of that relationship, knowing a little bit more about who I want to be my other significant other, but mostly who I didn't want to be my other significant other. And that ultimately led me to my second relationship, where it was mostly a exploration of compatibility, and also learning to build an intimacy where it's further than just physical. And in that relationship, there was definitely a emotional connection there, where I learned to work with my emotions and how to deal with conflicts. Spoke about compatibility in the sense of future aspects of like marriage, where I see myself, what I want to do with my significant other. That relationship lasted quite a while, of 4.5 years of just trying to figure things out. I was in uni. In that relationship, I learnt, I guess, again, a lot about myself and what I wanted in my other half, as well as what I don't want in my other half. I think the biggest struggle in that relationship was the fact that of learning what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept. It's mainly because I have put a big emphasis of conditional love. And one of the things at the time that was that we got into a big fight would be, marriage, constantly the unsureness from their end, whether they want to get married or not. And the fact that there's also, I went into that relationship, I wanted to have a good future. And at the time, I thought that, you know, I wanted to be with someone that has a university degree, because obviously growing up, that's what I've been told, is that getting a degree will allow you to have more money in the future, meaning more financial stability. And that's what I do want, and I still do want for my future. Unfortunately, in my previous relationship, the partner that I was with, you know, ultimately did not want to continue to pursue their academic journey, and I had to kind of go through a process where was I able to accept the person. And ultimately, I feel like it wasn't the fact that I was accepting the person, but I allowed the feeling of love and fondliness for that person to allow me to tolerate what just didn't sit right with me and my expectations for my other half. And I feel like that ultimately was the downfall for that relationship, because it was just a lot of things were just toleration on my end, because I've been with this person for this many years now and I don't want everything to go down the drain. But unfortunately, it did end, because I feel like obviously this is coming from my side of the story, and there's going to be a lot more into it, and there's many things that I wasn't perfect, and I'm not a perfect person. But at least in my eyes, it was ultimately things went down simply because there were certain things that I can no longer be okay with, because in my head I've been already tolerating things that didn't sit right with me. And there was just one thing that just broke the camel's back, which is marriage. I thought that in my head, that as long as I can tolerate and I will slowly accept them for who they are and who they want to be, as long as we get to marriage. And I think ultimately at the same time is like during that relationship, I saw myself as putting a lot of resources, time, you know, money into this relationship. I was almost kind of like doing, at least in my point of view, I was almost, you know, making sure I'm working on my future so that I can provide for our relationship and our future. And I hope that, you know, using my resources, that I can put them in a better spot, that they feel comfortable in the idea of marriage. And ultimately, that wasn't what they wanted. And so we went our separate ways because we're just not compatible anymore. And in that relationship, it definitely taught me the idea of, you know, listening to your gut feeling. There were multiple moments, I would like to say, in that relationship where I felt like the relationship was not compatible. At the end of the day, I'm still a girl, woman, who just wants to be loved and wants to be chosen. And I feel like that was why I put such a huge emphasis in the idea of marriage. So coming out of that relationship, love obviously has changed. Some for the better, some might think that it's become a bit more cynical. Where I got out of the relationship and I wanted more. I got my expectations, I know my values, and I see my value, and I wanted more. The video isn't really about the whole, you know, sprinkle kind of thing, or like, you know, Wizard Liz kind of be like, you need to have standard, don't deal with bare minimum. I do believe there is some level of being realistic. Like, you can't expect too much that you can't offer, you know, in a sense. But I feel like coming out of that relationship, I definitely kind of got into the thing where I realized that I do have a lot to offer and who I am as a person. And that's kind of the mindset that I went into the dating world again, eventually. And this leads to the relationship that I'm in now. Obviously, I'm only 24. There's still so much I need to experience of love. And it's always going to be a forever changing concept for us humans. But I feel like the relationship that I'm in, at least so far, has represented the third and final love for me. And the reason why I say this is because as I'm thinking about all my past experience with love and what I allowed to tolerate or whatever, certain things that what I was tolerating in my previous relationship has now just become acceptance and unconditional acceptance. And one example would just be the whole university degree thing. And I know some people will be like, why are you so goddamn honed in about the university degree? But at the time it was quite important to me. But the fact that, you know, and there is a part of me where like it still kind of is. But when I met the guy that I am with now, I feel like possibly there are other things about him that makes up for all these other things that I wanted in a partner. But when I met him, I just accepted him. I was genuinely okay that he didn't have a university degree, you know, I was genuinely okay that he wasn't a lawyer or like doctor or something like that, because I generally see that there is something in him that makes him special in some way, and even, you know, admirable in some way. You know, his values, his integrity, his knowledge and everything else that's not related to academic. I still believe that love should be conditional, but this relationship did make me realize the part of the unconditional acceptance. It has made me learn that, you know, you can accept someone even though they don't, you know, obviously fully meet your standards or expectations and all that kind of thing. In the terms of commitment, obviously I've always been a very committed person, but I do find in this relationship that I don't have a wandering mind, in the sense of, because in my previous relationship there's obviously certain aspect of security that hasn't been met. There wasn't any financial security, there wasn't any future security in the sense of like what's the plan and all that kind of thing, you know. And it sucks for me to say this, but it has put me in a spot in the past where I would think about the possibilities of finding other people and always kind of reminisce about this idea of finding someone better. The grass is greener on the other side. But in this relationship, I don't see myself doing that, and I don't know whether this is like an idea or an example of commitment to someone, but it's kind of, in my head at least, it's past the idea of like you physically making a commitment towards a person, but it's also the idea of how my mind is at peace in the sense of security. And I find it crazy because, you know, obviously coming from a person who genuinely wanted to get married, and, you know, almost to the point where I'm quite embarrassed about the idea of wanting to get married, but it's still so scary to me. There are still days where I sit and I think about it and I go, do I actually really want to get married? Is the desire of wanting to get married is out of insecurity and you know, trauma and stuff like that. But I think it's the fact that at the end of the day, after I go through these thinking and thoughts, is that at the end of it all, I'm okay with the idea with this person. And I do remember, you know, in my previous relationship where obviously I wanted to get married with this person, but if you ask me truthfully, there were many moments in the relationship where I genuinely had a gut feeling that this isn't right. But like I said, I'm just a girl who just wants to be loved at the end of the day, even though my idea of love and the conditions that comes with it has changed. But ultimately, I'm just a girl who wants to be loved. And obviously in the last part with the lasting bond, I don't know. And I think that's where the cynical part of it has come. And I do see it as a trend with a lot of people in general, where the more relationship you kind of go in, the more you kind of become more cynical about love. Because obviously the amount of, like, I guess I'll use the word failure with love, obviously going to be more cynical, and the less trusting and, you know, you become in the process of finding your other half. But I feel like I'm at a stage where I have found someone where the love feels very calm. And I always love to use this analogy where this is ultimately like what I generally believe what love should look like and feel like. Is love should feel like and look like a fireplace during winter. We're just sitting there and you're like feeling the warmth of the flames. I know that a lot of people would be like when they meet people, they go like, I don't feel the fireworks and stuff like that. I feel like, you know, we don't want fireworks. That's what I learned as a 24-year-old, is that we don't want fireworks to be the version of love, because that's just so chaotic. And I know it's exciting, but it's very chaotic, and it's a very roller coaster of a experience. Love should always feel like a fireplace, sitting right in front of it, and you feel the flame warming your body, and should feel safe. So now, what is my kind of advice, or what I kind of want to end up finishing this video on, is that love will always going to be a forever changing concept for many people, whether it's going to become more cynical, more naive, more romantic, I don't know, but it's always going to be forever changing. But I feel like as you grow older, you will become more realistic on love, which is the compatibility aspect, and, you know, whether you can fully accept someone or not. The fact that love isn't easy. There are going to be moments, especially if you are from like a family like me, where you weren't shown what actual love is. You would find it harder to really know what it is, but love should feel safe at the end of the day. And sometimes love can be quite frightening, but you're going to be okay. You will be okay. Always just remember that you deserve love. As cringy as it sounds, you must love yourself, and you don't have to love yourself every single day. And I think that's the one main thing that I need to touch on as well, is that obviously we're talking about relationship with other people, but there's also an importance to intrapersonal love, where you need to be in touch with yourself, and you don't have to always be, because we're not perfect. There are going to be days we're going to be in a rut, we don't know what love is, we don't know what we want, but I do feel like there is a sense where love will come to you, and the right person will come to you when you finally actually connect with yourself first, or build that connection with yourself first, and fully understand, you know, obviously you're not always going to fully understand, because you're going to meet someone and that they're going to challenge your ideas about love or what you want or your standards and all that kind of thing, but ultimately connect with yourself and love yourself first. But yeah, that's all I really want to say today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and then I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. You have anything you want to say to other people? You're my love. 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 That's love.